They presumed that your departure would leave no ripple, that you would drift away quietly, tend to your wounds, only to return the moment they called for you. But what if I shared an insight with you? Your inner stillness is the profound response they never anticipated. Many believe stepping away is a sign of weakness. Yet, ancient wisdom teaches us that silence is a space of clarity. It is not a withdrawal, but a profound transformation. And when cultivated correctly, it does not simply cause them to regret your absence. It invites them to confront their own illusion of control. You are about to discover why your calm, your centered presence, becomes the most powerful truth of all. The very ones who dismissed you so easily will be the ones to quietly contend with themselves when they find you are no longer an emotional harbor. If you are weary of being the one who waits, who clarifies, who seeks to be seen, then you are in the right place to begin a new journey. Connect with this space, for here, week by week, we guide the path from pain to purpose, from reaction to stillness, and from a fractured heart to your most whole self. If they let you go as if you were nothing, remain here. The perspective you are about to receive will forever change the way you exist in their memory. Painful partings often arrive without a clear reason. At times, the connection just ends in a stark, quiet space. No conflict, no outward turmoil, no concluding words. They simply recede. And the most challenging part, you are left behind, trying to find meaning in the emptiness, while they carry on as if your chapter was never written. Then you hear the common advice: sever the ties, retreat, become unreachable, remain quiet, with the hope that maybe, just maybe, they will perceive your absence, that the quiet will echo loudly enough for them to hear. But as time flows on, stillness greets you from their side, and that brings a new form of challenge. Because when you withdraw, hoping to be missed, and you are not, your own silence can become a hollow chamber inside you, a space that doesn't feel whole. You create distance, and their life continues its course, unaltered. Nothing seems to change. What many do not realize is that the act of simply withdrawing has lost its former weight. Our world is filled with patterns of disconnection, of stepping back, closing doors, and then returning. It has become a predictable cycle, and that which is foreseen no longer holds the power to stir the heart or convey deep meaning. If silence was once a source of great emotional resonance, it has grown faint. Now it is almost expected, especially by those who once let you go. They may already anticipate your move. They recognize the pattern. They are prepared for it. They no longer feel the void of your absence. This is why merely creating distance is no longer sufficient. True detachment must spring from a source deeper than simply cutting contact. It is not about disappearing from another's life. It is about withdrawing from their emotional narrative. It's not a physical retreat. It is about becoming sovereign in your own emotional space. Have you ever sensed this? When you see someone from your past, but their entire energy feels different. The way they carry themselves, the calm in their expression, the lack of immediate reaction. Suddenly, a person who was once deeply available is now centered, peaceful, and undisturbed. That is what leaves a lasting impression. Here, the first foundations of their assumed reality begin to tremble. Not because you vanished, but because you remained in a new way. You are not broadcasting pain, loss, or sadness. You are embodying neutrality, a calm that neither blocks nor pursues, that offers no explanation. That stillness is more potent because you are still present, but you are not there for them. You exist, you move forward, you breathe, but none of this current flows in their direction. You've become a reflection that offers no image back, an echo that does not return their call. This gentle truth disturbs their sense of importance, and your presence now holds a different role. It is no longer an offering, it becomes a quiet reminder. A reminder that you exist, but you are no longer theirs to claim. Not emotionally, not energetically. This uncertainty sparks their unease, because this time there is no easy answer. When you disappear, people invent stories. They must be hurting. But when you remain calm, quiet, and emotionally self-contained, they have nothing to grasp. You have not departed, yet you are already free. You are right there, yet beyond their reach. That profound paradox works on their mind. And that is where the real shift begins. Not when you retreat, but when you transform. When you stop participating in the old dance. When you evolve in your stillness, not to affect them, but to protect your own peace. When you no longer feel the need to explain. When you cease reacting and simply continue your own peaceful journey. So if you believed that mere silence would be the answer, perhaps you were focused on the surface of the water. The true transformation unfolds within. It's not about leaving a place, it's about becoming an unshakable mountain. Even if they stand before you, they cannot disturb the stillness that you have become. This form of detachment leaves no outward trace, but it dissolves illusions. Nothing is more perplexing than a person who is physically near but emotionally sovereign. It compels them to face something they did not anticipate. You are no longer trying, and they can feel it in their bones. If these words resonate with you, become a part of this community. Each week, we share insights on the path of stillness, centered presence, and the art of rebuilding your inner home. For those who are done seeking warmth from fires that were never meant for them, a point is reached when you understand that your withdrawal no longer unsettles them, that they have adjusted to living without your energy. It's no longer a jolt, no longer disorienting. It's a familiar part of a sequence, a rhythm they foresaw long before you took your first step back. To be absent once meant something. There was a time when your quiet would leave a space. Now, it is simply part of the background, because the one who took you for granted has adapted. They have learned your rhythm. They know the quiet will eventually come. They have built a shelter for it. They even expect it. They will grow quiet for a while, they think. They always do. Then they will return when things are calm. That mindset renders your absence harmless, foreseeable, and easy to overlook. You have been mentally rehearsed so many times, there is no surprise left. When someone rehearses your departure like this, they do not fear losing you. They fear nothing, for they never truly believed your quiet held permanence. They learn to sit through your storms without being touched. That is the nature of emotional preparation. So when you pull back expecting to cause a great shift, you instead find stillness, a cool, quiet stillness. Not because they are without feeling, but because they are no longer surprised. You've become a character in their story, the dramatic interlude before your eventual return. And then it dawns on you, this silence no longer works, not as it once did, because it is no longer a statement. It is a background hum, expected, managed, filed under, a temporary quiet. Your emotional retreat has lost its impact, and the more you repeat it, the more secure they feel. It is a profound realization that what once made them reflect now barely causes a pause. And not because they are stronger, but because you have become emotionally predictable. You have given them the map, and they learn to walk the path without losing their footing. That is the turning point. That is when your own energy must shift, because silence alone is not the way. Withdrawal without inner transformation becomes invisible. You cease to be a mystery. You cease to be missed, not because you are unworthy, but because you are performing the same steps in the same dance. When you withdraw only to be seen, they can sense it. When you become quiet but still hold the hope of being followed, they can feel it. And they do not move, because they know that as long as you are waiting for their notice, you are still emotionally tied to them, still offering your energy. But something shifts profoundly when you stop moving away and begin walking forward. When you stop using silence as a method and instead let it be a reflection of your inner growth. You do not hide, you progress. You do not aim to affect, you evolve. That is where the impact is felt. They expect your silence to say, "Please see me," but they never expect it to mean, "My journey no longer includes you." And it is in that change from waiting to walking that your absence becomes real. Not loud, not agitated, just solid, quiet, and untouchable. That is the one part they were not prepared for, because they were ready for your tears. They were ready for your confusion. They were ready for your act of retreat, followed by a gentle return. But they were not prepared for your calm. They were not ready for your peace, for the version of you that journeys onward without looking back. That version of you, the one that does not flinch, does not explain, does not seek notice. That version is what dismantles the illusion they held. That version is what rewrites the story, because now they are the ones left observing in silence, unsure how to call you back. And with gentle irony, it is not the volume of your silence that creates a ripple. It is the clarity of your presence in your own life. It's the way you fill your own days without needing their acknowledgement. It's the fact that your energy no longer reaches out, no longer pulls back. It simply is. That energy, that stillness, that peace, that is a new language they cannot speak. And it awakens a deep unease in them, not because you departed, but because this time you did not leave an open door. You did not leave a path of crumbs. You simply changed the direction of your journey. No more waiting, no more checking for who might be watching. No more holding your breath for a sense of resolution that never arrives from the outside. You are no longer playing a game of hide and seek. You are building something true within yourself. And that is the part that is beyond their influence. Sometimes the most transformative action is not to vanish, but to remain still, steady, without offering entry to your inner world. You do not leave, you do not block, you do not run. But you also do not respond, do not explain, and do not invite emotional entanglement. And that, precisely that, is what changes the dynamic entirely. Those who engage in emotional games rely on your reactions. They are sustained by your patterns, the replies, the explanations, the justifications. When you withdraw, they wait. When you return, they resume. But when you remain without playing, that is when their whole structure begins to dissolve. Imagine someone trying to engage you in a complex game, but you simply sit, still and observant. You are at the table, present, but unmoved. No reaction, no countermove, no drama. Just presence. That kind of quietude. It can be deeply unsettling for people who depend on control. Because when you stay emotionally calm, when you neither chase nor provoke, the influence they once had begins to fade, and they do not know how to contend with that. Your stillness becomes the clearest message you could ever convey. It says, I see you, but you no longer have the power to move me. That shift is subtle, but deeply transformative. You are still visible, still in their world, but beyond their influence. You did not disappear. You simply stopped pouring your energy in their direction. And that quiet redirection of your inner resources begins to starve their illusion of importance. They expect an emotional retreat to be dramatic. They brace for blocked numbers, hurt messages, long statements. But they never expect serenity. They never expect you to remain present yet untouched. That is the part they cannot decipher. You might still cross paths, you might even see them, but your energy no longer bends or leaks toward them. You speak when it is necessary, you act with grace, and when provoked, you offer quiet, not resistance. This is not coldness, it is clarity. It is emotional self-possession. That clarity is your shield. To someone accustomed to manipulation, it's confounding because it shows that their methods no longer find purchase. Their words do not land. Their gestures no longer pull you back. They cast a line, and you simply do not take the bait. It is like tossing stones into a deep, calm lake and expecting great waves, but seeing no ripple at all. That stillness, that peace, that refusal to be disturbed is a language they do not comprehend. And that is what begins to unravel their sense of power. This is where they begin to question everything. Why are they not reacting? Why did they not respond? Why do they seem at peace? These questions arise in them because they are not seeing pain or effort. They are witnessing calm, and they cannot touch it. And what truly affects them is not your absence, it is your neutrality. It is the fact that you did not disappear, you simply detached. And in doing so, you have transformed the dynamic. You are there, but unavailable. Present, but out of reach. Think of it as changing a lock without an announcement. They may still hold the old key, but it no longer opens the door. And that realization creates a flicker of panic, as they see that access was never a right, it was a gift, and they lost it quietly. They begin to test the waters, a small gesture, a brief message, a random question disguised as casual talk. But you do not engage, nor do you push them away. You simply exist without leaning toward them. And that restraint, that quiet strength, that is what loosens their grip. You have stopped feeding the cycle. You have stepped out of the arena without a fight. Now they are left calling into an emptiness, trying to provoke something that no longer seeks their attention. You have walked away emotionally without ever leaving physically. That is the difference between absence and presence without access. Absence is easy for them to define, but presence without permission, that is more difficult, because they see you thriving, breathing, living, but not for them. That reality has a certain fire. And while they are spiraling, trying to interpret your silence, you have already entered a new chapter, one where you no longer need to seek their approval, where your calm speaks more loudly than any reaction ever could, and they hear it with perfect clarity. At first, they watch you from a distance, feeling assured, silent, calm. They told themselves your quiet was a passing storm. But then time passed, and your energy did not return to its old patterns. That is when their curiosity transformed into something else, a quiet, inner turmoil. They begin to look for signs in your outward life, for subtle signals, a piece of shared music, a quote, a picture with a hidden meaning, anything that might suggest you still feel, you still look back, you still hold a wound. But they find nothing, no cryptic messages, no hints of bitterness, no emotional traces for them to hold on to. Just a sense of freedom, a kind of peace they were not prepared to witness. Your quiet online presence is not meant to provoke, it is meant to preserve your inner state. You are not performing pain, you are simply living on your own terms. And that disturbs them more than any argument ever could, because they can no longer map your emotions. There are no clues, no codes to decipher. And the more they search, the more they realize they have lost entry, not just to your life, but to your inner world. You see, people do not feel true unease when you are angry. They feel it when they can no longer read you, when your path becomes unpredictable, when your energy feels self-contained. Because those who thrive on emotional influence need to know your next step. But now, you are off their map. They search and search, hoping your silence is still about them. But nothing connects back. Your life no longer revolves around their absence. Your calm does not depend on their presence. That profound disconnect begins to echo in their mind. It starts with a simple thought. Perhaps they are just hiding their feelings well. But it does not end there. Days pass, and still there are no signs, no slips, no passive gestures. And that is when the thought becomes a whisper. What if they have truly moved forward? That whisper grows. It finds its way into their self-perception. What if I no longer hold that importance? Once that question takes root, it spreads. Because until now, they always assumed your silence was an emotional act, not a sign of indifference. Now, they are not so sure. And it is not just what you are not saying, it is what you are doing instead. Living your life, sharing moments of beauty, a lightness in your being, a genuine smile in photos. You do not look like someone trying to be well, you look like someone who simply is. That contrast is jarring. They expected a struggle, an obvious void in your days. But you are not limping, you are walking with a steady gait. And it is not a performance, not a tactic. It is simply what happens when peace replaces longing. The silence that once seemed passive now feels like true distance. Not the kind that waits to be bridged, but the kind that cannot be crossed. And that is the kind of distance that dissolves the illusion of their central role. Slowly, quietly, and completely. Now, they start to wonder if all the influence they felt they had was just a projection, if all the control was borrowed, if maybe, just maybe, they were never the cause of your silence, but the catalyst for your healing. And that thought is sharper than any conflict. Because it does not just say you are gone, It says you have outgrown the space they occupied. It whispers that their part in your story has concluded, not with a shout, but with stillness. Not with a slammed door, but with a step forward. And when someone who once felt central to your world realizes they are no longer even a footnote, it touches a part of them they rarely show. Their sense of self, their identity, their belief that they were irreplaceable. They thought your silence was about your pain, but now they are beginning to understand it was about your release. And that revelation changes something within them, because they are not just witnessing your absence, they are witnessing your freedom. The ache used to reside within you. It was with you through the sleepless nights. It walked with you as you revisited old words. It whispered in your ear each time hope was met with silence. But that ache has slowly, quietly found a new place to rest. Because now, they are the ones left pacing, wondering, scanning for any digital trace of your former self, searching for signs of weakness, of attachment, of a wound that hasn't closed. But what they see is an empty space, not within you, but in the place they used to hold. You did not erupt, you did not plead, you did not block or shout or send a final, long message. You did not try to prove your worth one last time. You simply ceased explaining, ceased reaching out, ceased offering entry to someone who did not know how to honor it. And that silence, so clean and untroubled, now echoes within them. At first, they believed it was another one of your phases, a pause, a quiet protest. But time continued to flow, and your stillness did not change. It did not soften, it held. That is when they understood this was not a phase. It was a turning point, a shift they did not see coming. For the first time, your silence was not carrying hope. It was carrying finality, and nothing is more unsettling to someone accustomed to being let back in. Now, the roles have shifted. You are not the one awaiting closure, they are. You are not the one holding on, they are. You are not the one suffering in confusion, they are. And the silence, the very same quiet they once used as a tool, is now causing them to look inward. Because silence is easy to dismiss when it is filled with emotion, but when it becomes neutral, emotionally calm, almost peaceful, it becomes a mirror. They cannot shout at it. They cannot reason with it. They cannot fix it. They are left alone with their own echo. They start to remember moments they dismissed, words they spoke without thought, times you reached out and they pulled away. And those memories, once weightless to them, now return with substance, because now they understand that was the last time you would try. They are not haunted by your words. They are haunted by all that is now left unsaid. The conversations you stopped starting, the effort you stopped making, the doors you quietly closed without a sound, the calm that took the place of your turmoil. And while they sit in quiet, hoping you might reach out once more, a deeper part of them knows this is different. You are not punishing them, you have simply disconnected, and that realization begins to ache in places they did not know could feel. The unease sets in quietly. It is not loud or dramatic. It shows up in the way they visit your online space and find nothing aimed at them, in the way messages go unread, in the way your name fades from their view and does not return. That's when their composure begins to crack. Not because you left, but because you did not try to come back. You did not ask for their understanding. You made no final emotional appeal. And that absence of noise, that is what cuts the deepest. They begin reaching out, perhaps not directly, but through subtle gestures, a small sign, a shared memory, a random message after weeks of quiet. But your response is no longer guaranteed. Your stillness now has boundaries, and your peace has become untouchable. They are finally feeling the weight that you once carried. Not because you desired revenge, but because healing has natural effects. One of them is clarity, and clarity creates space, a space they no longer know how to enter. That is where the real age begins for them. And the most profound part, it's not the silence itself. It's the realization that this time, you're not watching your screen. You're not checking to see if they noticed. You're not counting the hours since they last spoke. You have stopped waiting entirely. That is what breaks the cycle. Not your absence, your indifference. Not your distance, your peace. Because now the ache resides with them. Quiet, heavy, and resonant. And nothing they do seems to call you back. There comes a moment when your silence becomes more than just quiet. It becomes a mirror. And the person who once dismissed you is now forced to see their own reflection in who you have become. Now that they are no longer a central force. You no longer plead, you no longer explain, you no longer show signs of an inner life that is tied to them. And every attempt they now make lands in a space that no longer reacts. The emotional triggers they used to pull are no longer connected to you. The game has ended, but they have not yet realized it. They send a message hoping to create tension. They share something designed to provoke a response. They create scenarios that used to draw you in. But what they find now is stillness, quietude, indifference. Not forced, not performed, but genuine. And that empty space where a reaction used to live. That is profoundly unsettling, because what they are witnessing is not anger, it is absence. Not of your body, but of your participation. You are not punishing them, you have simply walked out of the arena. You are no longer playing the part they assigned to you. You once were the one who overthought everything, who analyzed every signal, who looked for meaning between the lines. But now, the only thing you are watching is your own state of peace. You are not ignoring them to prove a point. You have simply stopped looking in their direction. That is what disorients them. Because they assumed they had time. They assumed you would always be an open door. They thought they could leave, and you would be waiting in the hall. But now the hallway is empty, and the door leads nowhere for them. They start to see this new version of you, and it shakes them. Not because you are angry, but because you are clear. You have become a reflection of all that they lost. And seeing you that way, strong, calm, and distant, compels them to see their own role in your change. You hold no bitterness, you cast no blame, but your very stillness communicates what they do not wish to hear. I am not who I once was, and I am not returning to that version of myself. And for someone who once thrived on being the center of your universe, that truth is a heavy weight. Now, when they try to re-enter your life, they find nothing familiar. The way in is not the same. The energy is different. The warmth is gone, not replaced by coldness, but simply no longer offered. The person they once knew is no longer present, and the version of you that remains does not bend. They try to play the old game's subtle messages, remembered moments offered like bait, but the rules have shifted, and more importantly, the other player has left. There is no audience, no applause, no performance, just stillness. That is what they cannot contend with, because the stage was once theirs. They set the rhythm, but now the stage is dark, the lights are off, and you are no longer in the front row, awaiting their next act. You have left the theater entirely, and with that, you have reclaimed your own story. It is a peculiar kind of ache, one that comes not from being left, but from realizing you are no longer needed. That is what they feel now. The quiet collapse of a dynamic they didn't know they depended on. And the most piercing part of it all, it's not what you've said, it's what you haven't. No grand finale, no final confrontation. Just the gentle, firm conclusion of a chapter that closed itself, a decision made without asking permission, a peace that does not seek their approval. You do not return to make a point. You do not come back to show them what they lost, because true growth does not perform. It simply moves forward. And when they look at you now, they do not see someone trying to win. They see someone who already has, by no longer needing to play. Every attempt they now make to draw you back in feels like a blow to their own self-importance. A reaction they once confidently expected now meets only stillness. Just empty space, just quiet, just the unmoving presence of someone who no longer sways to their rhythm. That is what unsettles them. You have become calm, but not passive, present, but not available. Your stillness is no longer a waiting space, it is a boundary. Your silence does not cry for attention, it radiates peace. And peace, to someone accustomed to creating chaos, is a fearsome thing. They send a message, even a small one. They interact with an old memory, hoping to trigger something familiar. They try to provoke a reaction with half-meant words or nostalgic plays, but nothing lands, because the version of you that once gave chase is no more. Your energy now is a closed gate. They can see the garden, but cannot walk through. And that hurts in ways they may never admit, because they realize with each unanswered attempt that they lost access to the best part of you. Not your presence, but your openness. You did not become cold, you became clear. And with that clarity came a form of strength, the ability to observe without reacting, to exist without needing, to stay without clinging, and that level of presence. It is the outcome they never foresaw. Now they walk through the same spaces where your attention once showered them and find only silence. Not because you have disappeared, but because you have detached. You are there, but not for them. And that is a deeper form of rejection than words could ever convey. They used to know the way to your heart, what to say, and when to say it. But now, every attempt is a step into the unknown. Every move they make is met with your centered stillness. You have become the living consequence of every moment they believed you would never walk away. And it wasn't anger that led you to leave, it was clarity. The kind of clarity that needs no explanations and seeks no revenge. Just distance, just silence, just a life that no longer holds them at its core. And now they sit before your calm, like someone standing outside a door they never imagined could close, a door that once opened every time they knocked. But this time, the handle does not turn, the welcome is gone, and so is your willingness. You are not hiding, you are shining, but your light no longer warms them. It simply exists without invitation, without explanation. And that untouchable presence, that is the wound they now carry, because nothing unsettles one's sense of self like realizing they no longer know how to capture your attention. And nothing is more confusing than seeing you at peace without needing anything from them, not even an ending. They used to feel like the center of your orbit, but now your orbit has changed. Your focus has expanded. Your silence is no longer a tactic, it is a state of being, one they cannot break, cannot reach, and cannot disturb. And in that untouchable stillness, they finally feel a fraction of what they once ignored in you. Because the truth is humbling. Those who did not know how to protect you now do not even know how to approach you. So now the question is not whether they will return. It's whether you will still be there for them if they do. And whether they will even recognize the person you have become. Because the silence they once dismissed has been the space for your transformation. You no longer explain, you no longer perform, and you certainly do not chase anyone who could not see your value the first time. But here is the part that matters most. Will you continue to grow, or will you let their return pull you back into the same cycle? Because they will return, perhaps not with grand words, but with a small gesture, a glance, a quiet, "How have you been?" But it is not about their actions, it is about what you do next. Is your foundation strong enough to remain calm and to remain on your own path? If you felt that shift within you, if this message awakened something in your heart, do not let it fade. Let this be your turning point. Use this silence not to wait, but to rebuild your inner home. And before you continue your journey, join our community and activate your notifications. Each week, you will find powerful guidance to transform challenge into inner strength and silence into your greatest ally.